Hello guys, now just before we get in the video, apologies for lack of uploads recently. The football hasn't been great and that's been main reason for that, but no excuse either way, and we're locked down, now in play. I'm sure it'll be easier for me to do a few more uploads, so yeah, hope that should change soon. And I'm going to start doing the FIFA videos as well once again, so I hope you guys enjoy that as well. Now, in today's video, because I've left it quite a while now since I've done a recent one, I want to kind of go through a few factors, but of course the main one's going to be reacting over the Palace game. But also want to sort of talk about, the future projection of the club, where we're going to go, what's sort of going on, like, there's the car crash with Mousset that's just happened as well, and what's going on with that. Rumours about Wilder, where he's going to leave or go, and just some other sort of topics for the transfer window as well. So I think it's only right we start with the Palace game. Now, it was deja vu, wasn't it, really? There's been performances this season where we look okay, and we look maybe 6 out of 10 of an average performance we had last season, but anything else this season's been below that. I do honestly think people were probably joking about it at first, but I do actually think it's the honest truth. When we go into a game, especially from away from home, we tend to be willing to get a 1-0 defeat each week. I don't really think anything was different against Palace. I think with Palace, it was a game where even though they're in a decent position in the table, they're very inconsistent. And ironically, I think if there's any team you're going to beat in the season, it's going to be Palace if you're up for it. It's just whether you're up for it on the day or not. And we had to be, we need a win. And we just didn't go for it. I mean, I think Norwood just saying the fact that, we're unlucky that we didn't get the things going our way and we were 2-0 down and so on and so on. And the fact that, I mean, it was a great goal, but it was legal for it to go ahead and score. He had to be closed down. He went through like 5 people and it was absolute disgrace. And not a single one of them even tried to foul him to stop him going through on goal, because once he's got Egan and Ramsdale in his sight, there's nothing really going to stop him. And it was a great finish, but you knew it was going in and he just had to be stopped, and he wasn't. So I mean, that really sort of summed up our season. The first goal, I won't lie, it was unlucky, but still, Norwood, half-hearted clearance. If he'd put a bit more weight on it, would have gone out for a corner. But I don't know, take that one how you want. Either it just shows how bad we are defending, or it's just the luck of our season. Think a bit of both, in fairness. But here's where it might surprise you guys. I didn't even watch the second half. I've just been so sad watching our football just gets me in such bad moods, such a bad state of mind. I mean, you can't really blame anyone for thinking that way when we've been the way we are this season. Sadly, I felt in my gut that nothing was going to change the second half. No fight, and from what I've read and heard, that was the case. And it's just so disappointing to think that, yes, there's no fans to play in front of, but you can't even give a bit of desire, give a bit of extra just to try and get something from the game. I do believe a lot of it is confidence as well, don't get me wrong, and I think with lack of confidence comes lack of creativity, because stuff like that comes when you've got a bit of belief in yourself, to go the extra mile, do things which you shouldn't usually do, for the better, of course. And with lack of confidence, that's never really going to help much. Now, I do also think the formation doesn't help with creativity, because you've got full-backs and wing-backs that can't really go forward. You've got overlapping centre-backs, which aren't really a thing anymore because of injuries and tactics and people just not being able to adapt to the role. The other problem is having a flat midfield three. I think if you had one roaming forward like we did with McGoldrick against Everton, I think it could work, but I don't think having a roaming midfielder when you've got the 3-5-2 formation is going to work, because you need support in all areas, and if you've got 2 midfield with a 5 at the back, it's definitely going to leave you a bit exposed in the counter-attack. So I do think with a playmaker in the number 10 role, which we need because we need creativity, I do think we've got to have a back 4, but we haven't done that since the Brighton game, and this is not really worth getting into. But yeah, like I said, didn't watch the game in the second half. I felt better for it, I have to say, but I just think it's such a shame it's come to that. It's the first time I can think where I just haven't watched the game when I had the chance to, which is a real shame. Anyone who loves their team wants to watch them play, but it's really sad that it's got to the point where I can't even bear to watch us play, because it's just so heartbreaking. I sadly think it's not really going to change. I mean, maybe against Bristol Rovers we'll get the win, but confidence is so low, you couldn't be surprised when either way. Playing against a Premier League team, they're really going to be up for it. They're going to want to get the win, just like we did against teams like Villa when we were in League One and the FA Cup. Beating teams like Fulham as well, which relegated Fretton, so their confidence is very low, but theirs was nowhere near as low as ours is now, so you really don't know how it's going to go. I do sort of wonder where the future lies for the club, of course. People saying how basically everyone thinks we're going down now, which is not really a surprise when you think the points we've received, how far we are away from the drop zone, and just sort of what we've seen from the season so far. We're not even halfway through the season yet in terms of games played, and people really saying stuff like this is definitely worrying, to say the least. A lot of people saying how they believe in Wilder and how when we go into the Championship, he's going to bring us straight back up. Now, there's two sides to this. I'm more on the side of doubting that because the confidence will be so low, you can't, no matter who you are, expect them to suddenly revive this form and bring them straight back up again. And that's not just Wilder, that's anyone. I think, even if it's a new manager that came in and this form was the same, it's still going to be very hard for those same group of players to suddenly revive their form. I think I'd start with just replacing the whole of the midfield. I think Osborne's a grafter, so probably keep him. Nor might have experienced the Championship, but I probably want to get rid of Fleck from what I've seen this season. Lundstrom's obviously probably going to go to Rangers by the sounds of it this transfer window anyway. And that just shows I like him midfielders because that's basically already. I mean, you've got Paddy B's on loan anyway. Berg, I think he's quite overrated, and plus probably doesn't really fit our style anyway. Probably do better with a club which is more dominant on the ball, like I mentioned in previous videos. So I think for the money we get for him, it's probably worth getting rid. But you'd obviously want a return on profit. So I think the fact we got him for 20 million, I believe we'd probably want to try and get him sell for more than that. With a combination of not really doing anything for us and getting relegated, that might be quite hard to do though nonetheless. So it might be a case of us loaning him out and hoping we get promoted in the first season back. In terms of our strike force, I think we'd actually have a very good one for the Championship. Sharp's got a long contract, and I think his experience, whether he plays or not in the Championship, will be vital. McGoldrick's a very creative player and top goal scorer this season as well, so it'd be nice to hold on to him. Obviously, Bruce has just joined, and I don't see Liverpool buying his buyback clause anytime soon, so I think he'll be here to stay. And had a decent half season with Swansea, so if it's anything like that for us next season, if we're in the Championship, it might not be too bad. Mousset, we still don't know if it was him driving the car or not. The fact the club haven't really said anything maybe makes you think it might have been something to do with him and it wasn't a stolen car and he was one that crashed it. So it's not a good sign. Obviously not really, I don't know if it's enough to get rid of him out of the club, but he hasn't been anywhere near the heights you saw of him last season. That has been down to his injury as well, so maybe if his toe, which I think was broken, is to recover soon, we might see him back to his normal ways. But I don't know, I just think he's very in and out of the team, and obviously you need consistency, so I won't be surprised if he left, maybe if we were to get relegated. For McBurney, I think a great striker, played very well for Swansea in his last season in the Championship, so it'd be great to have him for us in the team. But I think we have to change our style if we're to have McBurney in the team, because this season, with a lack of confidence, like I've said a lot, is that he's given a lot of criticism, but I think it's very scapegoat criticism, because yes, we might lose and play bad with him, and I do agree with that, but you've got to look at the reasons why we play badly. Now, lack of confidence, lack of creativity. I play Sunday League. If you're a centre-back, all you really want to do is just kick the ball long and get rid of it. Whether that's down to not having the confidence or just liking to kick the ball long and down the field, it happens. And I think we've been doing that this season, but the problem with us is that we don't even support McBurney when we do the long ball. So he'll win the header, but he's got no support, and then it just goes straight back to opposition and they get the attack going their way. So any attack we have is immediately voided because it's just a long ball which goes straight back to them. And how are we meant to do anything from that? The thing is, even if he wins the header, he's still got 4 defenders to get through, and no one's going to be able to do that anyway, let alone get the finish on top of that. So I think that criticism has been very harsh. I know Scottish fans have said the same thing as well, and that's a different team, a different system, different opponents as well. So I do maybe think fairness, maybe should be doing better for Scotland as well, but I think obviously the confidence from playing for us is obviously added to the toll a bit, and I do think obviously, of course, Scotland going forward aren't the strongest, so he's going to have problems in terms of getting chances for them as well. The defence, I think that's the real question mark, to be honest. I think, if you look at a lot of people, it's just a question whether they're going to stay or not. I mean, if we get relegated, I do see Egan as a future captain, but it's whether he sees himself as that as well, because I do think he could probably get into a Premier League team if we got relegated. Probably alongside Baldock, he's the only player to get 7 out of 10 most weeks this year. And I'm really not sure if we go or not. I think he probably would, because he's getting towards 30, so he probably wants to have a last surge of form and get as far as he can in his career, which you can't really blame him for since he's not a Blade. For O'Connell, that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, he's very used to playing on the left side of a back 3, so for most teams playing with a back 4, for the money they might have to spend, they might be a little hesitant, considering they don't know if he'll be able to adapt to a back 4, because that's how they'll play most likely. And if he stays, then it'd be great news, but maybe we'd have to continue the formation. I think we do need to look at other areas, even if O'Connell was back, because once again, even if he is back, Bash's not getting any younger, and we're going to have to find someone on the right side to replace him doing that role anyway. So it really could be just a case of trying to find a new solution. And then, of course, Basham once again. I think he could stay, but, he's been linked with Premier League clubs in the summer. I have to say, he does look very good in midfield. I think against Brighton, he looked great as a box-to-box midfielder. So maybe that could be his role for most teams which won't play with the back five. Ramsdale, he just signed, of course. I don't really see him going anywhere. And, look, we saw that thing where he'd saved the most shots in the Premier League in 2020. So that was a decent stat for him. And just hope he doesn't get back-to-back relegations, which sadly looks like it's inevitable to be the case. Now, this might be a case of Chinese whispers, but I did hear little rumours that apparently Wilder had walked last night and left the club. But I've looked online, I've looked in the forum, and I don't really see anything backing that up. So maybe it was just a bit of bullshit. But we'll find out soon enough, I'm pretty sure. But you wouldn't be too surprised if that was the case. I mean, it'd be really, really sad to see him go on this stage. 99 wins as well. I know that's not the main issue, but the fact that that would be the end of an era which had started so well and only recently gone downhill. I do think it might have been the right decision though, because although you want to be sentimental and you want to be nostalgic and you want to sort of back up someone who's done so much for the club with such sort of low expectations going into it, it's a real shame to see him go. But you just don't really see how it's going to get any better. You look into the season and you just sort of think, who are we going to beat? Like I said, I think even though we've done very poor, Palace was a beatable team because they're very inconsistent. And as long as you keep Zaha quiet, you've got a chance because they play quite negative football. And it just didn't work out. And you just thought, well, we're not going to beat them, so who are we going to beat? I mean, Newcastle, similar team, decent players, but play negative football. So that could have been a chance, which is our next Premier League game. But I just don't see it happening. Every outcome we have is just maybe a good 10-minute spell at the start, and then the team gets into it, gets the goal, heads go down for us, and good night. So I think that would probably be the case for the rest of the season as we're continuing, especially with the shape. I think, like I've said, I think we will do better with a different shape, but it's not going to happen. It hasn't done. And even so, I'm not saying it would get us any points, but probably play better positive football. I think realistically, though, if we were to look up for survival, may have been harsh at the time, but I think we had to have sacked Wilder after the West Brom game. That was the game where it was doom and gloom, but there was still a chance of survival. It was pretty early on in the season, still a reason, not that big a gap between us and the other teams, but week by week, of course, as we know, it's got wider and wider. Now, we are 4 wins away from the escape zone, which is maybe an optimistic way of looking at it, but if someone could just resurge these players and, in fairness, probably get a few loans in, because it won't be transfers, as we well know, then possibly could see a resurgence in form. But I think we all know that's very, very ambitious. I think the other aspect we've got to look at as well is Wilder as a manager. The fact that, we want the best for him as well as he wanted the best for us as a club. And week by week, his reputation tarnishes more and more. To go this long without a win and only 2 draws in it as well, his CV's not going to be looking sparkling in terms of, attracting big clubs. I think now that he's had this sort of form with us, he'd probably be looking at a championship team in terms of his next job. And I think that'd be fair enough because obviously, he had one good season with us, but in terms of him looking for other Premier League clubs, they're definitely be looking abroad most likely. His biggest chance is probably getting a team which is on the up in the championship with money to spend that can help him be an established Premier League club. I think one thing, we've got to look at, which is probably his fault, is the transfers. I mean, granted, he couldn't have much money to spend on the actual wages of the players compared to other Premier League clubs. We had to have a pretty, minute wage budget, which, he did very well with. But the main thing is the transfers he actually brought in. Now, like I've said, this is like a two-way street. A lot of people criticise McBurney, which I don't. But if you do, you've got to question the man who brought him in. And obviously that was Wilder. So, if it's because of the style that McBurney plays and we don't play it, then why do we do that? We play with, overlapping centre-backs, like we've said. And there's never really seemed to be anyone who can sort of do the job that isn't Basham or O'Connell. I think Robinson can actually start to look like he can do it now, but obviously at a much lower level of quality. On the right side, there hasn't been anyone. I never really knew if Retsos could do it or not because he never played. But instead of him, there's never been anyone else that could do it on the right side for us. So we're just lucky that Basham's got incredible stamina. In terms of the wing backs as well, we know that all it takes is 1 yellow card, too many, a red card, or an injury, and one of the 2 out of Stevens and Baldock could be out. And there's never really been anyone that looks like they could be in contention to fill the void. Recently with Bogle, you think that would be the case on the right side, but I'm yet to see on the left who would be good enough on the left, let alone Stevens himself. I mean, Stevens looked pretty poor this year, so I don't think even he's good enough to be a left back for us. But Osborne's probably been the closest thing to a decent left back we've had for a while. But even so, I don't really think he's good enough to play a whole season there. So I think the whole left side is very weak. Left side of midfield as well. I mean, Fleck's been very poor this year. Osborne hasn't really done enough in midfield either. And I'm just never really fully satisfied with Lundstram either. I don't really think he's been anywhere near his performances that we saw from last season at all this year. So a lot of worries and a lot of players which aren't up to what they need to be. But when you see where we are in the league, that's no surprise. So I think I've sort of just gone on a rant here, and I hope my points are sort of seen the way I want them to be seen. And I think it's just sort of where we are as a season, this sort of video. Like I've said, obviously I've gone over a few of the points I want to go over, and Championship football inbound by the looks of it, like we've said. But like I've said, no reason why we're going to go straight back up. You know, in terms of what we've seen of us, you've got to ask yourself, how many teams would we beat in the Championship with the team we've got and how we're playing? I would probably say we'd finish about mid-table if we were to have, you know, a hypothetical Championship season, you know, now. And I don't really think that's being too harsh. But I'm sure a lot of you will beg to differ, and if you do, let me know in the comments. If you don't, also let me know in the comments, because it'd be interesting to see what fellow Blades think, because from my perspective, from what I've seen on the TV for the whole of lockdown, it's obviously been a massive dip in performance since that Villa game with the Gozza goal. I'm not saying that if that went in, the season would have been, you know, prime tiki-taka Barcelona football, but at the same time, that game, even before the goal so-called didn't go in, that, you know, it was a very flat game and flat performance and lack of creativity, and that just has continued since that game. You know, at least last season we had after lockdown we had a few results. You know, the last minute winner against Wolves, the two big wins against Chelsea and Spurs, but since then, of course, we've got no wins to put to our name, and that's a real shame, because all you really want is just a win to cheer you up at the end of the day, but that's not happened, of course, sadly. And yeah, we are where we are. Next game against Bristol Rovers in the Cup, so maybe something could come from that. But like I've said, I know it sounds a bit over-exaggerated, but the lack of confidence we have and the fact that Bristol Rovers will be very up for getting a win against a Premier League club, I think can't be underestimated. And I think as long as we get the win, and I'd rather have it with our first team so that they're used to actually having a win this season, can only help maybe our season and to be a more positive light. But we will see, and we'll also see if Wilder stays, because like I've said, I don't know how much truth's in this leaving, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because there's only so much you can take as a manager, and you don't want to see you and your team losing every week. It's not really going to be good. And I think it was a very worrying defeat, that Palace one, because even though it wasn't a battering, they didn't need to batter us, because they knew once they got the first goal, that was it for the game. And yeah, I think a lot of things have to change in January. Getting rid of players as well can't be underestimated, as well as bringing players in. I think it's about, well, managed to get rid of them because a lot of them are very poor. But, you know, a few loans in, a few midfielders. I think a whole three midfielders wouldn't be underestimated to what we need. Of course, a centre-back as well. But I don't think we'll be able to afford that. I think realistically, we're only going to probably bring in one player, maybe two, and that'll be it. And that'll be it for the season, of course, and we'll just have to see how we do. But if you did enjoy the video, please like, subscribe. I know it's a long one today, but I think it kind of makes up for the lack of uploads, and I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, take it easy, guys.